Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Working Families Party track. My name is Steve Hughes. I'm with the Membership Organizing and Radical Education team with the Working Families Party, and I'm here to introduce my colleague, Lexi Coburn, who is the National Radical Education Field Manager. And we've been working together for a little while now, and I'm really excited that she's here today with you. She comes to the Working Families Party having worked at Indivisible and also on the Warren campaign. She ran their training in North Carolina, which is where she's from, calling you from there now. And I am really excited that you all are here and that Lexi is going to take us through this session called The Parties We Have. Go ahead, take it away, Lexi.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve, and welcome everyone. We are really glad to have you with us here today. And today, we're going to be talking about the parties that we have, like Steve said. In other words, if you don't understand that statement, when we look at the political system in this country, it is generally described as a two-party system, one or two. And so for this short interactive session, we're going to unpack that a little bit. So let's go ahead and talk about our goals for this session. First, we want to learn about the diversity of the power players that exist within the two parties, or at least close to them. And second, we want to learn a little bit about the interests of those power players and what they do to advance those interests. Finally, we want to develop a multifaceted understanding of political power. What do we mean by that? Well, we want to look at power. We want to look at how power is more than just people and money, as important as those things are, but it's also about controlling political infrastructure and shaping how people think. So let's dig deeper on that idea of developing a multifaceted understanding of power. What gives a person or an organization political power? Now, if you have ideas, I would love to see them, so throw them in the chat. Let's see who thinks so. I'll give you all a moment to type your answers in the chat here. Okay, well, totally fine that y'all don't have ideas. That's all right. We're here to learn. But what I think is that, so obviously the first thing that gives someone political power is the ability to win votes, or at least to deliver them to someone else, right? For someone else. This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of measuring political power. And in our country, the ability to win votes is often closely associated with money, either having your own or being able to raise very large amounts of it. However, there is more to it beyond just votes and money. Another way that people and organizations gain political power is by controlling political infrastructure. And that might mean controlling levers of power inside of one of the parties or inside of Congress itself. This kind of power lets you put things on a political agenda, and in a lot of cases, it also lets you keep things off the agenda. Is this starting to sound familiar? And finally, political power also makes itself visible in terms of the ability to shape ideas and the way that people think about the big issues of the day. Some might say this is the ability to shape what the general public considers to be common sense at any given amount of time. All right, so let's just say, what if we were able to draw a picture of what political power here in the United States looks like? What might we draw? If you have ideas, you can put them in the chat. But what I will do is that I will keep looking at this slide here, and this is a picture that we drew. And it's a picture of the modern Republican and Democratic parties. Now, we're not going to go into great detail about this right now, but this picture shows some of the forces that live in these two parties. Now we have everything from elected officials and former party organizations to the media to voting constituencies like white evangelicals for the Republicans and affluent liberals for the Democrats. We also have donors, and we also have advocacy movement organizations. All of these pieces, all of these are just that. They're pieces on this power map. And this picture is placed on this power map as well. This is a tool that organizers often use to assess the power in their communities and to plan their organizing campaigns. It's a tool. As you can see, it's set up as a grid, and along the bottom, on the horizontal axis, we show how aligned various power players in our political system are with us, with the Working Families Party. On the left side, let's say we have people who believe that we should abolish all billionaires, which is yes. And then on the right side, we have power players who believe that what's good for billionaires is good for all of us. Does everyone see that, the way that's being laid out here? On the vertical axis, we see how much power these groups have. Closer to the top is how more powerful they are. And closer to the bottom, the less powerful. I hope everyone understands that. And just to reiterate, higher you are, the more powerful you are, the lower you are, the less powerful you are, the more left you are, the more left you are, and the more right you are, the more right you are. All right, so we can argue all day about where any one of these groups on this map should be. But for now, let's not quibble about these details. What we really want you to do is take a look at the broader patterns on this map. Now let's take a look at 3 larger groupings on the map. Now, the first grouping in the upper right-hand corner here is the Republican Party. It's in red. Yes. We would argue that regardless of any particular election outcomes right now, the Republican Party is quite powerful in terms of having very well organized infrastructure and a clear and consistent worldview. It doesn't really change that often. Now, the next grouping here in the middle, this is what we could refer to in shorthand as party establishments for the Democrats. These are the big donors, the bulk of elected officials, consultants, and also voting blocs like affluent liberals. And the final group here, this is where we live. This is where movement organizations and left-wing elected officials live. It's also where the multiracial working class lives as well. So just taking a look at this, I'm noticing just a couple of things here. And the first thing that I'm noticing is that there is some overlap between the circles. Now, we're not talking about solid boundaries. We're human, right? Just simply groups that tend to cluster together in terms of ideology and power to enact that ideology. The other thing that I'm noticing here is that it's pretty obvious that our folks don't have a lot of power. There's not a lot up here for us. This is a little green circle. It could be bigger. But this is also true compared to Republicans. But it's also true compared to the forces that make up the establishment of the Democratic Party as well. So even though it looks smaller, it's actually not that small. So here is another version of the power map, and typically my favorite. We want to go ahead and get more concrete with all of this. So we're going to make our own effort to place this onto this power map with several real-life power players. Now, of course, if we had more time, we would map out both the Republicans and the Democrats, but for now, we're only going to concentrate on the Democrats because true to form, there are a more complex situation in terms of our understanding of how political power is distributed. Now, so we're going to go ahead and get started with someone who is super familiar in terms of, and for all of you, if not most of you, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, as she is affectionately called. As you can see on this slide, we're laying out 2 things. We're laying out what her interests are and what means does she have to achieve those interests. So for example, AOC's interest is pursuing policies for the many, not the few, That sounds familiar. And in terms of her means, she has a huge social media following at her disposal to achieve her interests. I can go on TikTok or Twitter at any given time, and she's talking about policy to a whole bunch of millennials, which is exactly where we want to be. I am going to give you all a few seconds to just look at her and look at the card and to think about where on the power map you think she should go. So I'll give you all a few moments to figure out on this power map that we'll see in a second where she should go. It's totally understandable that, like, upon viewing a power map for the first time, that you're like a little stumped, but let's just go ahead and go through it. So the way that this is going to work is that you're going to use your chat to have the option of upvoting or downvoting AOC in terms of the power axis, right? To show how powerful our group thinks that she is. And you're also going to have a chance to vote her to the left or the right of the map. I did it backwards, but you know what I mean. The left or the right of the map. All right, so I'll get, and again, we're going to do this all in the chat. So if you think she should go up, write up in the chat. If you think she should go down, write down. And if you think she should move sideways in one direction or another, left or right, in the chat. Okay, yeah. So let's go ahead and look. Oh, we have a couple of responses here. Norma says she should be in the middle. Okay. All right. What's going to happen here to make this as interactive as possible is that you're going to give me these responses, and I'm definitely going to take them into consideration, but you will see in a moment where, because we've done this before, and our participants have pretty much a good sample size of where they think that these power players should go. You're going to see it on the slide in just a moment. Okay, awesome. So based on other times we've run this exercise before, this is where other people have put her on our power map. So as you can see, this is pretty high for a semi-new person in Congress to be on. Pretty powerful, but also pretty left. So this is an elected official that is pretty aligned with us, holding a considerable amount of power. Now, if you think this makes sense in the chat, let us know. Or if you disagree, you can tell us that too. But for now, we're going to go to Nancy Pelosi, a more senior person in Congress, I'm losing my words, a politician who most of us also know decades of service work. So, where do you think, I'm just going to give you all a moment here, where do you think that Nancy falls on this power map? Okay, let's just go ahead and move forward here, but let's see where Nancy landed in our previous presentations of this power map. Yes, Norma said up, and Nancy did go up. That's exactly right. Nancy is center up, so that means that she is even more powerful than AOC, and also not bad line with us. She's kind of in the middle. As we go through the next few power players and organizations and media outlets and things of that nature, you're going to start to see a little bit of a correlation on where people are and where they aren't, and how far apart they are from each other. All right, so let's go to the next one here. Service Employees International Union, or SEIU. This is a labor union representing 1.8 million workers. Let's see where SEIU falls on the map. Okay, so SEIU falls pretty more in line with us than Nancy Pelosi, but not as in line as AOC, and lower in terms of power structure, even though they represent 1.8 million people in the United States, which is, you would think it's a considerable amount of power, but remember, people and money always don't represent what we think power is. Cool. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. The Movement for Black Lives, a network of dozens of local and national organizations committed to Black liberation. This is one of the grassroots groups that we're going to examine here, and let's see where they fall on the map. Movement for Black Lives is a little further, just a smidgen further left than AOC. But as you can see here, they're even more aligned with us, but have less power. So as you can see, less power is a line to the left, but it's really down here in the corner too. So just to think about like what they're able to affect, even though they're a network, how much power are they able to actually exert? Okay, let's go to the next person here. David Plouffe. I've met him. He's a political consultant. David Plouffe is like central to party establishment work in the Democratic Party. So let's see where he falls on this power map. I have a hunch, and the hunch was in the middle. That's exactly right. David Plouffe is actually very, very center, which means a lot, but also not a lot of things. He is in the middle of the road. Remember when we said earlier that what's good for billionaires is good for us? This is one of the people that probably believes that, just because, like, I met him, but we're not friends. I don't know his ideologies like that, but I do know from the power map, he does believe that, because look how centered he is on this power map. He's powerful in a sense and aligned with us in a sense, but it's not as close as we'd like it to be. Okay, this next one. Center for American Progress, also known as CAP. Current president is Neera Tanden, liberal think tank and an advocacy organization. So let's see where CAP finds itself on this power map. CAP is right there in the middle too, a little further down than Nancy Pelosi, literally in the middle between Nancy and David, which makes a lot of sense. This is what you are viewing here. This correlation is typically referred to as the party establishment in the Democratic Party. When we were talking about that earlier, this is it. Cool. Thank you all so much also for participating in the chat. I do see that. Norma's got it right now. Norma got it. Awesome. Let's see where African American voters land. Hi, by the way. Where do I land on this map? Less than 12% of the presidential electorate. That's not interesting. I had a hunch, but I didn't really know. African American voters, much like the Movement for Black Lives, land very aligned with us to the left. In fact, probably hard to the left, but also just so little power. There's not a lot of power here. And if you think about this power map is a tool to help you understand a little bit more about why that is. Because remember, African American voters are referred to in the Democratic Party as the largest voting bloc, the backbone of the Democratic Party. 97% of Black women vote Democrat just about every presidential year in the last 3 or 4 cycles. But why is the power so low? This is the reason why we have these tools, because we got to figure it out. Highly educated voters, less than 10% of the presidential electorate, so smaller than African American voters. Where do they land? So highly educated voters, and remember, there's no solid boundaries here. Some of these post-it notes are going to really intertwine, and this is one of them. You can be an African American voter and a highly educated voter too. Highly educated voters, for the generality of them, land pretty also centered with Nancy Pelosi, David Plouffe, CAP. They land that center, and they don't have a ton of power, but if you notice, slightly more power. than African American voters. And as you can see here, voting blocks don't have a ton of power. Most of them are down here on the bottom of the axis. People means power, right? Why can that be? See who else we have. Michael Bloomberg, CEO and owner of Bloomberg LP, former Republican and independent mayor of New York City, and also 2020 presidential candidate. Let's see where Michael Bloomberg lands on this power map. Michael Bloomberg is on an island. He is on an archipelago somewhere else that is not the United States, right? He's in Seychelles. He's over here. He is not aligned with us. He is almost a diehard. That doesn't say that. My apologies. He's over here on an island. He's not near Nancy Pelosi. He's not that near David Poloff. He's not that near AOC, and he's on a different world than African American voters and Movement for Black Lives. And we have to understand that he exerts a considerable amount of power, and in fact, just about the same power structure as AOC, but in a different world. And also see where the establishment is. Establishment is surely in the middle, and you have these two forces on its left flank and right flank. This is how you can also understand you can understand the way things unfold in our democratic world. Also, we have MSNBC. We absolutely have to incorporate the media into this discussion. And MSNBC is a Democratic-leaning cable news network. I used to watch it. I used to like to watch Rachel Maddow. Where do MSNBC land? Where's Joe Manchin? Also on an island somewhere too. MSNBC, pretty true MSNBC, falls in the center as well. Exuding a good amount of influence actually, and that's going to be kind of normal in terms of media organizations. They are there to exert influence and information, which equals power in a lot of cases. So just think about like why MSNBC is that high on it, but like you have voting blocks that are much lower. And to answer your question, Norma, where Joe Manchin, if we can stay on the slide for just a second, where Joe Manchin would probably align on this map is somewhere, I would say right around Michael Bloomberg. I would actually put him a little bit higher, just a little bit higher than Michael Bloomberg in terms of where we are right now in Congress, but who knows? Steve, do you have an option? Do you have an opinion?
I would put him really high right now because of the balance of power in Congress, that he's a deciding vote and he can basically swing things completely his way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And if you look at where Joe Manchin was in 2018 when he wasn't exerting this type of influence, he didn't have the stage to be blocking things or not blocking things, right? He would be much lower in our perception of his power. But because Congress has shifted the way it has, he's able to actually exert a lot more power and influence than he had in previous years. Great question, Norma. Thank you so much. All right, let's move forward. Thank you all so much for helping me to build our power map. But let's go ahead and return to this overview slide that we started with, the power grid map. Now, when we look at this, we see how power is being distributed. And on a map like this, power acts as a center of gravity. Just put everything in the middle, and it pulls objects toward it. This creates clusters. Now, if you look at clusters, I noticed a couple of things when I look at clusters. I noticed that we are sharing the Democratic Party with some powerful forces that are not that aligned with us. They don't really speak for us. And here at the Working Families Party, we like to say that we are renting a room in the Democratic Party, but we definitely don't own the house. I don't really know them. I do, but we don't really kick it. I'm not trying to play spades with them, but I live here. Our task is to build a political home all of our own. A political home for the multiracial working class, a political home for the many, not the few. So now we have some real important business to attend to. The Working Families Party is investing in our election work in communities that normally get cut off for the electoral map. You know those states. We're also investing in the South, where I live. Hi, here in North Carolina. And we are investing in building power in local races all across the country. We're also investing in creating real change in people's communities. And lastly, investing in building a political home that we can call our own. So when you want to take the long view, we know that we need to invest in turning our movement demand into electoral common sense. We will continue to ensure that our demands to defund the police become an irresistible force in the ballot box. And we have not overcome all its resistance to a Green New Deal or to capping CEO salaries. We see that it's moving, but it's not where we want it to be. Not in a case to really make this the party of our dreams. So this is the organizing work ahead of us, and it's not always going to be fought on the presidential stage. It shouldn't. Our work is to win 1,000 battles across the country all at once. So are you down to join me in this work? We envision a political party that's 100% pushed by our social movements and funded by our base so that we are free to show up for our communities without no one telling us what we can and can't do. And the truth is, well-connected millionaires and billionaires like, Michael Bloomberg over there in Seychelles, they're experts at taking care of themselves, and good for them. But working class people are experts at taking care of each other. Working class people, we know how to pull together, and throughout this pandemic, we've shared our extra food and supplies with our neighbors and chipped in funds to take care of each other. So today, I'm inviting you to join me at the Working Families Party as a member. Now, if you're down to join me, if all this sounds good, you learned something, I really want to know more, things of that nature, I ask you to join me, and I ask you to go right now to wfpus.org/Lexi. That's me. Again, that is wfpus.org/LEXI. Think about what a meaningful contribution for you is today. And even better, what's a meaningful contribution that you can give monthly? What can you throw down to power our movement to face the challenges ahead for the long haul? Are you able to contribute $20 or $50 or even $100 today? No matter what your financial contribution size is, because we accept it all, there is room for you in this movement. And it's room for you to show up with all that you are and all that you have to share. We see you, we appreciate you, we got you. So once again, join me in building the Working Families Party into the party of our dreams by going to wfpus.org/Lexi. And thank you so much again. I had a lot of fun. And I hope to see you all again soon, and have a great day.